guys. Happy New Year. This is January 1st, and this is Unleashed. And if you don't know us very well and you're just tuning in, one of the things we always say is we are the resistance, and we are glad to have you with us in this new year. Eric, I got a question for you today. We're going to start with that. Rather than you asking me one, I'm going to flip the tables here a little bit.
Uh-oh.
First of all, do you ever watch those television shows like at the end of the year that show all the like stuff that happened in the last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy.
Oh, my gosh.
Because you don't realize, you're like, well, was that this year? I mean,
I know.
Yeah, it's, wow.
And then I always like find out about like somebody died that somehow I missed it. You know, it's like they're gone.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah, it's,
yeah, it's just, Matthew Perry passed away. They're like, was it like maybe 6 weeks ago or something?
I think
Friends.
So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just some crazy stuff. Well, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So my question for you today, and this will be in honor of today being like what everybody does with their New Year's resolutions. Do you do those?
Not really.
Yeah.
I never have. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not real big on resolutions either.
No.
Yeah, I think the reason is because I know, you can be inspired, you can be motivated to do something. But if somehow it isn't integrated into your life in such a way that it's almost like you have to have it, you're not going to do it.
Well, so the only kind of a resolution, it's not even a resolution, but like a little goal that I set like a month ago was I wanted to put 500 miles on my bike before the end of this year, and I'm at 450. So
and what's the weather like?
I know.
I've got one of those bikes like in my house. You can come like pedal that. And...
we have a Peloton. But
do you? Oh, wow.
That doesn't count. I just my outside road bike. Like I want to put 500 miles on it this year.
Okay.
So
you better get on it.
I know
it's cold.
I know. I even bought the ski goggles and everything so I don't freeze again. But I'm right by the Monon. I hop on the Monon trail and just go.
Oh yeah, I forgot you lived down there in Indianapolis in that area. That's a pretty area down there.
Yeah, it's nice. The Monon's fantastic.
Yeah, we went down and watched the fireworks down there this year. It was pretty impressive. Well, hey, today, what we want to talk about, is really about, what can we learn from like looking at our past? And I'm not talking about, bringing up stuff that's going to cause you trauma, but I think it's important to look in the mirror, to look at, the last year, what we've done, what did we hope to accomplish? And you heard me talk a minute ago about like, New Year's resolutions. I'm not real big on that because here's what I really think about. If you're waiting for motivation or inspiration, now I'm not saying that I don't, listen to podcasts. Obviously I'm doing one and I hope you're getting inspired from that. But like when I'm working out or something I've got a workout room in my house, sometimes I'll put on something motivational just for the moment because I love to have my tank filled a little bit. But I want you to notice something. When I'm in my workout room working out, I'll put on something like that to fill my tank. But here's the thing. I was in that workout room before I got motivated, before I got inspired. Why? Because here's what, in my life, the way that things seem to be the most effective with me is inspiration and motivation are absolutely important. But what overrides that stuff? It's discipline. Because when I get up, I know, like in the morning, my routine, what I'm going to eat, like oatmeal with protein powder and blueberries or whatever, and get my morning cup of coffee, and then get ready to take my pre-workout drink and stretch and do all that stuff to get ready. Because that's as important, as the workout is as far as the discipline, giving my body what it needs. So for me, it's that discipline of every day. I know exactly what I'm going to do. It becomes a part of my routine. So for me, again, that's the way that I end up achieving the goals. I get people all the time. I don't know if you ever have, Eric, people come up and they go, man, I want to start a workout program. Like, what's the best workout?
Yeah, these real general, broad.
Oh, yeah. And you're like, okay, I mean, you can look at P90X, you can get Pilates. Here's what I tell them. Whatever one you'll do.
You nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, whatever one you're going to do is going to be the best one for you. So you've got to kind of figure out, for you, where you are maybe age-wise, physically, mentally, all those things. What is going to be time schedule? What's going to be the best one for you? But I want to encourage you, today, New Year's, to get that as a part of your discipline, your routine, because it is going to be so important, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all that stuff to be able to achieve, in this next year, some of those goals that maybe that you had. This podcast, Eric, we talked about this like over a year ago. And
Right.
yeah, and so when did we start this? In beginning of September? I think this is episode, what is this, 24?
We need one of those videos.
Yeah.
What happened in 2023? The podcast start. I couldn't tell you.
It's funny. You think back about, the beginning of the podcast, and actually it went pretty smooth. We only really had a couple little interruptions, somebody coming and banging on the window or trying to record or something. Well, you were in the hospital, though. That was 2023. That was big for you.
Yeah, that was. Yep.
Yeah, I was in, but it wasn't as scary as yours. Good.
Yeah.
So let's get busy eating right and exercising, getting our heads straight so we can achieve the stuff we want to do. So anyhow, let's look at this, how we can apply this today, maybe through the door of adventure, like I want to kind of start with, like I usually try to do, and then bring it back to some things that are, practical in our everyday life. But, looking at the wrong stuff, when you're looking back over your year, if you're looking at the wrong things, if you look at something and you go, I failed at that. Wow, that was a big, miserable mistake. You got to be real careful what you're looking at, because it can affect your mood, which can affect your productivity, your confidence, your relationships, your success. So one of the things my wife will always say to me is this. She'll say, sometimes I wish you would think about the way you want to create a date for us as much as you pursue the way you plan for a hunt. And there is a lot of truth in that. And I think for you guys that are hunters out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We'll go to the nth degree to make sure we've got the latest, greatest, whatever it is. And it's not just like a 1 or 2 or 3 month season. It's something that we think about year round because it's something that we are passionate about. So this last year, or what we're looking at now is in the rearview mirror. I had a buddy of mine, Tim, and he said, hey, if you could go on a hunt anywhere, or for any animal, what would it want to be? Well, of course, my first thought is, brown bear. I want to do a brown bear hunt, but that's crazy expensive. It just really is. In time frame and everything, I just didn't have it. And he said, how about black bear? He said, let's drive up to Canada. I've got some buddies I go with every year. And so I'm like, I'm not turning that down. What a gift. So we did. So, you got to remember when you're getting, we're bow hunters. So we're practicing, a long time before the season's getting here, planning everything and making sure we have the right camo for the weather, have every bases covered, and everything is stored in plastic tubs and scent free, and making sure we have the right snacks. And I'm going to be filming, so I've got all the right camera gear. My batteries are all charged. So we get all the way through customs. We get to the camp. And the first thing we do is, unpack everything. Everything has a place. We're disciplined in how we do this because we know the last thing you want to do when you're on a hunt like this is you don't want to know is, man, where did I put those gloves? Where did I put that hat? Where did I put my license? All these things. So everything has a place. It doesn't mean that it always stays there by about the third day of the hunt. And you guys know what I'm talking about. All of a sudden, you're like digging through your tub and going, man, where did I put, and everybody's laughing at you. But so we get out there the very first day. Now, here's the thing. Here's how well planned it is. Everyone knows exactly where they're going to be going. There's different stands. We had to drive like 40 minutes to an hour from the cabin just to get to each place. So we have to be, with our time, we have to be really careful how much time we take getting ready to get there. So before we ever go to that stand, we have a guide that knows the area that takes each one of us to the stand. And he walks us to it, and he shows us the entrance and the exit, where the bears are usually coming from or whatever. And so we know where we are going. We have a plan. And then we carpool. We'll put 2 or 3 of us in a vehicle, and the first guy we'll drop him off, and he'll go back, and we'll tell you we'll meet at a certain time, be out by the road. And so we have a plan. We know where everyone is. We have our names written down on a chart, who's hunting what stand. Each stand has a name. So we get in there on the very first night. Now, one of the things that I wasn't planning on having like what I would say like a target bear, a bear that's going to be, 400 pounds. I wasn't expecting anything, like that in the first day because you're going in, you're kind of messing things up a little bit with your sound, your scent. And I get up in my stand, and the first thing that I noticed actually was I looked down at the base of my stand, and I was hearing this sound. It was like, I couldn't even describe it. It was this constant hum. And I looked down at the bottom of my stand, and there is one of those, beehives in the ground, and there's thousands of bees just swarming, and they're going around my neck and my head, and I'm going, man, this is going to be a distraction. And it was just kind of a really unnerving thing, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. So I'm up in my stand, not thinking anything is going to be coming by, and all of a sudden, out of my peripheral, I see this massive black shadow. And here comes this, 400-pound, and I'm looking, wait, is this a sow? Is it a boar? You're doing everything when you're bear hunting. You want to look at the skull. You want to look at the sag of the belly. You want to look at the walk, the waddle, the hindquarters, because we're really trying to target, shooting a boar, not a female. So this thing's coming in, and by the time that I take the time to judge what I'm looking at, realizing that females really aren't going to get that big, it's going to be a male, I have already blown it because I wasn't really thinking ahead. I wasn't ready. And so the thing ended up, sauntering off, and that was the end of my first day's hunt. So I get out to the road, and Tim picks me up in the truck. And as we're coming out, we don't have good cell signal. We get this first text. And in the text, it says, hey, I'm not going to say that the guy's name that was with us, but he's injured. And so we're trying to figure out, what happened? What did he get attacked? I mean, we know there's wolves in the area. There's all kinds of stuff. And then we get another message that comes through, but it's kind of vague. It says, he got stabbed. Like, got stabbed. Did he fall out of his tree somehow and he fell on his knife? Did he harvest a bear and he was, he stuck himself? I mean, I've done stuff like that when I'm gutting them out. We can't figure it out. We're not getting details. And then we get the next message saying, hey, there's an ambulance and police here. Come to where we are. It's the opposite direction where we've been. It's about a 20 more minute drive. And we passed the ambulance on the way out, and they won't give us any details, because of HIPAA and everything. They're not going to let us know what's going on. So we go the rest of the way to where the guys are, and they said, man, he said, and it was pitch black. I mean, this is the darkest night I've ever been in my life. We were sitting in the truck, and when we shut it off, you couldn't see your hand 3 inches in front of your face, just pitch black. And so the guys are all kind of gathering around. What had happened was the guy had shot a bear, and as he was tracking the bear, he had tripped on a log, and there was a broken branch sticking out, and he put it into his leg, and he was literally bleeding out. They had to take a World War II gurney and get down in the woods and get him out of there. And as we, got there, the ambulance had just taken him. So now, the team is now down in the woods. We're tracking the bear, and there was honestly, Eric, there was more blood from him by far than there was the bear. So we knew he was in real trouble.
Yeah, that had to be scary.
Oh gosh, I mean, and because we're a long ways. We're an hour away from the nearest hospital, and we're way back in the boonies here. So we get him out, and then we have to, find the bear and dispatch of the bear and get everything out. But the reason that everything worked is because we were disciplined enough to follow through with the plan that we had. We knew where everyone was going to be hunting, and if anything did happen, there was going to be a rescue team. There was, crazy, nothing like that I've ever been on a hunt's ever happened like that. I mean, I've been in some bad situations, but not where I had to have a rescue team come in. But what would happen in other things in our life, right? If we took some things as serious as we did, and let me speak to myself here, as I did that bear hunt, what could be different? Looking at 2024 and what we're going to be, coming on is looking at that this year is going to be something that I want to be so focused in an area that is really important that I can be successful at it and not get distracted by the peripheral, like that bear coming in. I was looking at the bees, which totally distracted me from looking at the bear. And, if you've lived long enough, you know that anything that is worth having is going to take a lot of work, and it's going to be focused work. I made a Facebook post maybe 2 or 3 days ago. I don't know what it was. And I've got a copy of it. Let me read it to you. It says, delayed gratification is the process of doing something repeatedly for a sustained period of time to get a desired result that is not immediate. It's the act of resisting an impulse to take an immediately available reward in the hope of obtaining a more valued reward in the future. And I was kind of mentioning to you, I said, 2 examples of things that I love doing are bow hunting and weight training. We just touched on those. I've been doing them for a lot of years, and both of them require patience, hard work, and a lot of discipline. And what that means is it's training your brain to put your body through things that your body wouldn't choose, right? I mean, sometimes weight training is hard. It does not feel good. So you're training your brain to put your body through things that your body wouldn't choose. And nothing happens quickly in either one of these things. Hunting can be, a lot of patience, the same with weight training to get the growth. But the beautiful thing is both of those things create resilience in the face of adversity. So at a time when we've got like 95% of the population that's living for the moment, for that immediate gratification, we have got to learn resilience and patience. It's really core to life. It creates focused tension towards a future goal, and it brings with it a feeling of purpose and accomplishment that brings meaning to the struggle. Like if you've lifted weights and you finally start getting some gains and you're losing some body fat and building some muscle, and you look in the mirror, someone notices something, you see that long process, it wasn't overnight. There's a gratification because you achieved a goal that you said, I am doing this no matter what. So it's finding purpose, it's through finding purpose that you will obtain the strength and the will to persist and pursue, and where you can choose and embrace delayed gratification over the immediate, and which is honestly a lesser reward. So the more valued reward is worth the work and the wait. But how many? Let me ask you this. I was just watching this clip the other day because I was thinking about, what's this next year going to look like? How can I get focused on something and get myself broken out of those normal patterns, those neural pathways that we get stuck in? And I was going through some reels, and I came across City Slickers. Who was that? Was that Billy Crystal? Yeah, Billy Crystal, Jack Palance.
Yeah, was Jack Palance kind of the old cowboy?
Yes. Yep.
And the guy from Home Alone.
Right. What's his name? I can see him. Not Macaulay, the dad or whatever.
Well, he was one of the burglars. The curly hair.
Oh, that's right. And they both went on this trip up into the out west or whatever it was. But Billy, I remember this. Billy Crystal was like searching for more in his life. He was trying to find something to make him feel alive. I know that's how bear hunts make me feel. I love when I get a chance to do something to hunt that can actually hunt you, which is kind of fun. But they were trying to find something to find purpose, basically, in their life. And I was watching the scene where Billy Crystal and Jack Palance are riding horses alongside of each other. And I can't remember what Billy Crystal's name was in the movie. Not Curly, that was the... But he's talking to, maybe it was Curly the Jack Palance? I can't remember what his name was. But he's talking to him, and he says, did you ever find love in your life? And the old cowboy says, yeah, once. He's like, once? He says, yeah, I saw this girl down in the field, and I fell in love with just looking at her. He says, well, did you pursue her? He says, no, I rode away. He said, why? You might have just missed the biggest, thing in your life. And he's like, yeah. He says, no, I fell in love with her. I didn't need anything more. And he says, I love being a cowboy. He says, you don't find very many of us left, and I'm good with my purpose, and that's where I'm happiest. And so as they're riding, they get into this conversation about purpose. And Jack Palance, the cowboy, asks Billy, he says, do you know what the secret of life is? And Billy just kind of shrugs his shoulders, and the cowboy holds up his hand and puts one finger, and he says, one thing, just one thing. And Billy doesn't know the answer to the question, do you know what the secret of life is? He sees Jack put this one finger up, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. He says, what's the one thing? And the old cowboy responds with, that's what you and your friends have to figure out. I was telling you at the beginning of each year, one of the things that I really do like to do is I like to look back over the past year and be honest with myself. I'm going to be more honest with myself probably than anybody else is because I know me. Did I have a plan? Did I work that plan? Was it effective? If it wasn't, why wasn't it effective? What do I need to do different this year, to make the best progress, possible? I was thinking about this podcast for this next year, some of the guests and some of the directions we might be able to go with this. But, I've spoken before about COVID during the COVID years, how everything, and yours probably did too, everything changed overnight. For me being, a speaker, everything got canceled. I needed a plan. And so I reached out to a friend, and I was talking to him, what am I going to do with my time as this thing is going on? And he said, you know what? There's a book that I would love for you to read if you've never read it. It's by author Gary Keller, and it's called The One Thing. And it's kind of funny, this video clip that we just talked about, you've got to find that one thing, triggered me to go pull that book out again. And I opened it up, and it was just like yesterday. And I looked at the very first page, and the first page says, if you chase 2 rabbits, and that's all that's on the page, and you turn it, the second page says, you will not catch either one. It's an old Russian proverb. It says, if you chase 2 rabbits, you will not catch either one. Now, what is it talking about? Well, if you've ever hunted rabbits, you know how they just take off in opposite directions. And if you start chasing both of them, you're not going to be able to catch one of them because you're not focused on staying on task. So I needed a plan of action. I needed to be focused on the most important thing. But here's the thing. If the most important thing is the most important thing, why would any of us try to do anything else at the same time? Let me say that again. If doing the most important thing is the most important thing, then why would we get sidetracked and do something different? It's a question that we really do have to ask, ourselves. I mean, my wife will tell you when it comes to like chasing different things, I'm like squirrel. I get a good idea and hey, I want to follow that. And she'll tell you that when I try to do that, I stink at multitasking. I'm not a multitasker. I get a lot of really good ideas going in my head, and they can come like firecrackers. But I struggle with picking just one of those things to focus on because I get too many, balls in the air at one time. I remember learning how to juggle one time, and someone was teaching me how to be able to juggle, and doing 2 was not really juggling, but you kind of start to learn, and then he would teach me how to do that third thing. Well, it was that third ball that would get me distracted, right? And so Keller says in his book, he says, when you think about multitasking, he says, let me tell you what my thought is about multitasking. He says, it's a lie. And here's how he explains it. He says the word multitasking didn't even come on the scene until the 1960s. And even then, it wasn't talking about humans. It was talking about computers, how they were, unlike humans, able to do a number of things at the same time. Now, you and I can walk and talk and chew gum at the same time, but what we can't do is really focus on 2 things at once. That's great. Computers can do that. They're built for that. But for us, we really just can't do it. And that's like when you hear a child, being left unattended in a hot car while the parent gets distracted in a store. It's because they had too many things going on at one time. You're thinking, how could you get that distracted? That's what happens to our brains if we get too many things going on. It's like when you think about two planes being cleared to land at the same time on the same runway. It's how a husband can forget something as important as a wedding anniversary. He gets too many things going on. We get too easily distracted, and sometimes, it's got really serious consequences, especially if you forget your anniversary. I was reading recently about Stephen King, the author. I don't know that I've ever really read any of his books. I think he's had some movies and stuff made out of those books, but I don't really can't even name one. You got any, Eric? Do you know any of those?
Okay, hang on. Was a Needful Things one? I don't know why I always.
I have
that
no
movie.
idea. Was Children of the Corn or some weird thing? It
with the clown.
Oh, that was him.
Okay, hang on. Just give me. You continue on. I'll pull this up in a second.
Well, here's the thing about Stephen King. It was so cool when I was reading about him. He only works 4 hours a day. So it's like if he sets his alarm at 8 o'clock, for his work alarm, and he's disciplined, he walks in there, and he's done at noon. But here's what he does. You're thinking, how can he, being one of the most, accomplished authors, in the world? Well, it's because he gets rid of any distractions that are going to throw him off task. He stays focused on the main thing. I know me, sometimes, I've written a few books, and when I'm writing, I have to be careful to not have my a tab open on the laptop, for social media, like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or something, where I get tempted to want to take a little mental break and just start to scroll, because as soon as I break that task that I'm doing by doing something like that, my mind is like I said, squirrel. I just start going in another direction, and that focus that I had that was really creative and really getting some things done, now my start and finish time just changed because I threw a wrench into it because I got distracted. I got to make sure I turn the ringer off, on my phone. Any alerts, for I'm going to be getting a text, or an email or those kind of things. And better even yet, maybe it's probably leaving it in a different room, or maybe even just turning it off. And one of the hardest things I think for a lot of us to do that we have to get used to doing is we have to begin to value ourselves and our time and our purpose enough to set boundaries with others so that we're not getting disturbed, during those hours. And here's the thing with boundaries. If you start allowing them to be broken, they will continue to be broken because others won't respect your boundaries if you don't set them and keep them. If you don't have enough love and respect for yourself to believe that what you're doing is so important that you need to create a productive environment, why would anybody else believe that it's important? Did you find anything?
Okay. So I've got a few things here that I believe that you have seen a Stephen King movie that was a book. I'm going to name 3 that's probably going to capture a lot of the audience. Shawshank Redemption.
Yes. That was him?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Stand By Me.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do 4. The Shining.
Yes.
The movie It.
Jack.
Yeah. The Green Mile.
Oh yeah.
So they weren't all like horror movies, but Cujo and Pet Sematary.
Well, yeah, I remember all those are like when I was like late teens or something.
Yeah.
Good night. I had no idea he's got that many big hits out.
Misery. Was that?
Where it's like she breaks his legs.
Breaks his legs.
Crazy.
Yeah, there's several. They're not all horror movies, and you're right. Children of the Corn was also one.
Wow. Well, that's pretty crazy. And it's not going to be I need to be working on a new book right now, and I've started it, but I just there's too many things I need to stop and figure out what is the most important thing for me in 2024. If that's one of them, then it will be. But like my thoughts, like I said, I can get too many things going on. And I was reading that the average human has an average of 4,000 thoughts a day flying around in their head. So you can see why we feel like we have to multitask. I mean, if we change our thoughts, like every 14 seconds, which is what that averages out to, you can see why it's so hard to stay on task. So the result is that we try to do more than one thing at a time. And it's not that we can't. Like when you think about, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? But it kind of depends on, the complexity of what that multitasking is. Like when I'm driving, I can have the radio on and I can be singing and I can be going on. But if I get a call or something that comes in on top of all that stuff, and I'm trying to follow a GPS, it's like my brain stops. It has to focus on the conversation because I'm needing to interact mentally. Like a song singing, I've heard it 1,000 times. It doesn't really bother me. But if I'm trying to follow a GPS and someone calls me, I'm like, hey, I got to call you back. I can't do both at the same time very well, especially if like in a big city or something. But I think it's just really important that we understand that yes, you can multitask, you can do different things, but you're not going to be effective if you're multitasking because you can only truly focus well, like on one thing. But let me go back to this. We were talking about priorities for 2024. And until you can see that your purpose is so important that it's got to be your main priority, here's the deal. You're going to continue to get half-hearted results. You're not going to be able to be as effective as what you were created to be because we have too many distractions. So as soon as we switch from doing one thing to 2 things, we've now divided our attention. And here's the thing. If we add a 3rd thing to that list, something's going to get dropped, guaranteed. Because multitasking requires so much more energy and time that you're going to get tired more quickly, and the tasks will take longer to get done, and they're not going to be done to the best of your ability. Let me just look at even weightlifting, something as simple as that. That was a goal for me a few years ago. I've got to put my phone down because I'm going to get distracted. I can't be looking at it for emails. I can't be looking for texts. Like I said, everything's got to be turned off. Messenger, the television. And sometimes like I said, I listen to motivational stuff while I'm lifting, but here's where I have to be really careful. If I start getting too involved in what I'm listening to and I start to process it, I stop lifting. And it's really important, if you're really taking lifting seriously, that when you're doing your reps and your sets, that you're timing them. You don't want to have, 3, 4, 5 minutes going in between sets, like you're doing curls or triceps or legs, whatever you're doing. You don't want to have a lot of time in between because you want to work the muscle. Too much time in between, it's kind of defeating the purpose of what you started off with. So really, even I see guys talking in the gym all the time. They're like lifting and they get into a conversation. That's part of the reason why I can't go to a gym where there's other people working out, because people end up talking too much and just not really kind of getting stuff done that they want to focus on. Because again, too much time between sets decreases growth and it defeats the purpose. So let me just I'm not going to go too much longer with today's podcast, because I really want you to think about, what do you want to accomplish this year? And what are the things that have been getting in the way for you when you look back, not just the past year, but maybe it's a neural pathway that you've done for so many years that you need to change it. You need to be more disciplined in saying, I am not going to fill in the blank because it defeats what I'm trying to do. How important is what you want to do to you enough to set those boundaries, to get disciplined enough to look at this year, next year, this time, you can look back and go, man, the discipline made all the difference in the world because I set boundaries. Think about it. If you had to have heart surgery, like I had a little bit of heart stuff going on. Luckily, it wasn't any big deal. But would I have been okay if I would have had to have gone in for surgery and that surgeon was like scrolling websites and taking calls, while he's performing surgery? Heck no. That surgery is so important that he has to have a plan of action. He can't let anything take him off task during the operation. And that's how you have to treat what you do. Your purpose that you have was designed by the one who made everything there is. And it is so important that you need to stop and embrace that. What is it that makes you come alive? What is that thing that you can't do? Or you'd find yourself curled up under an underpass somewhere, because it's that thing that burns within you that is bringing you life. That's the thing that you put discipline to that, and there is absolutely nothing that you can't do. And that plan only came from the designer of the universe. He's given you a unique purpose. He's given you that specific gift. And it's so important for you to understand that he has shaped you. And I'm holding up that one finger right now for just that one thing. So what's your one thing? Well, like the old cowboy said, that's what you've got to find out. We'll see you next time.